It actually was my 22nd birthday, and I always keep it in my head like, catch 22. I got caught at 22. I done sparked the J, I hit it 2 times, I give it to him. He hit the blunt 2 times, and I see blue lights behind us. So he like, yo, that's the police. I'm like, he asked me, are they on us? I'm like, yeah, bro, they on us. I already got a 45 that's laid in the floorboard of the car. A month earlier, I had been arrested in Norfolk for having a concealed weapon. Now, I don't have any felony convictions at this time, but I still have this firearm that's in the car. He comes to the car, I give my license registration, I inform him that there's a gun in the car. He takes the gun, he takes the clip out, he set it on the hood of the car. For his protection, he asked me to step out the vehicle. He put me in handcuffs, he let me know, well, you're not under arrest, it's just for my safety. So, I explained to him this is my birthday, I was smoking, which is a misdemeanor. Like, I'm gonna call the gun in, if everything is registered, then I'll write you a citation and whatnot, you'll be on your way. Now, I'm clean, as they're searching him, a bag of coke falls out his pocket. They take me, they put me in the backseat of the police car, and I'm watching as they're searching the vehicle. Now, I know in the trunk, I got 4.5 ounces of coke in the trunk. I have 2 sawed-off shotguns in the trunk, and I see him take the key out the ignition and walk around to the back of the trunk. When he goes and he starts jiggling that, all I can do is just fall and lay my head over in the floorboard of the car, because I know it's about to go bad from there.
If I could change a few things, hold on, let me name a few things. If I could change a few things, let me name a few things. Hold on, let me name a few things. If I could change a few things, let me name a few things. Hold on, let me name a few things. If I could change a few things, let me name a few things. Hold on, let me name a few things. I probably make it, take what you got, man. I'm cool. Said I've seen a lot of things and I know the game ugly. But when I think about it, man, I wouldn't change now. Yeah. So
my name is Antoine Carey. I grew up in Center Cross, Virginia, which is, point of reference is Tappahannock, Virginia. Fairly normal childhood. I grew up in a divorced family, which my father wasn't in the home, but he was in the area. He was, still very active in my life. I have a twin sister and 2 elder sisters. Because I grew up in a household with just my sisters, I tended to try to blend in with other families that had males. I didn't come from a bad family. We wasn't rich. I never went without anything. I never was faced with, a lot of the ills that other families may have been faced with. I never remember electricity being cut off or, not having water in the house.
I did the best I could.
You did. You did a great job.
I got out here and worked 2 jobs and give y'all what other kids have, and I did that too. And y'all did good. I had smart kids,
My sisters and them, they kind of paved the way for what was to be expected of me because I was the baby of the family. And I would say that's one of the things that I still can't really piece together is because, I didn't grow up in the city. There was no tall buildings, there was no projects, there was no, there wasn't a lot of crime. When I used to go to Richmond or cities or there were places in those areas, and it's I wish that I had grown up here. And little did I know, I really didn't know or understand the ins and outs of life in the city, but it was some familiarity there, even though, I hadn't grown up there. I believe I was maybe 15 years old when I had my real first brush with the law, real trouble. It was a possession of marijuana at Essex High School. A small slap on the wrist, it was like, okay, now I feel like I can stay in a little bit of trouble. And it really wasn't that bad. I ended up at Norfolk State University. Again, was smoking a whole lot of weed at the time, and there was a Jamaican cat that stayed right offside of campus. So, naturally they ran a 24-hour weed spot. So, after a while of building a rapport and whatnot, he asked me, well, have you ever dabbled in cocaine? I seen coke before, but I never sold it. The numbers was great, the coke was amazing. He broke me off like 2 ounces and a quarter, well, 6 deuces, what they call it. He just dropped that on me, take this up the road, see what you can do with it. By the time I got up the road and, actually had someone to put it together or cook it rather, it was that. And that's kind of how I acquired the name College Boy. My mother And my father, stayed right there in Center Cross where I would, move around about at. So to elude them, they couldn't call me and say the Antoine's up the road, they would say College Boy. And that name always stuck with me. I received like a 1.5-year sentence for my first possession with intent to distribute and possession of a firearm while in possession of drugs charges. I did receive a bond at that time. When I caught those charges, I had been made aware my daughter's mother was in fact pregnant with my daughter. During that time, before going back to court, my father passed that September. My last incarceration was really an eye-opener in that you're facing real time. Like the plea that they even offered was for serious time. And at no time did it really click that the severity of this situation. The original charges was attempt second-degree murder, possession of a firearm by a felon, shooting into an occupied dwelling, and use of a firearm in the commission of a felony. Now, just on paper, reading these, several of these charges carry mandatory minimum sentences. If I can just get in work release or get a job set up, like I can stay at the regional jail. Like little did I know, like, nah, bro, you going to prison, man. Like you going up the road this time. When we went to sentencing that day, my sentencing guidelines was 2 years to 2 years and 4 months. So I'm thinking, in 4 years, 3 years and some change, I'll be home. My son was born on a Friday. I had to turn myself in for these charges on a Wednesday. I'm still thinking I'm gonna be there to watch him grow up. The judge come back, and I remember his words is that it's better to have never had than to had and have squandered. You, Mr. Carey, are the latter. And I remember he sentenced me to 17 years with 5 suspended, leaving a 12-year active sentence on top of the year and a day, year and a month sentence that I already had in Essex at the time. So it's like, man, you just gave me 12 years that don't even start until next October. And I remember him reading the charges off, and the first one is shooting in an occupied dwelling, 10 years or 2 years suspended. And I remember hearing him, but in my mind it's still playing backwards, like, nah, he didn't just give me 8 years right there. Especially when I know he got 3 more charges to read off. I can hear my cousin and my sister, and I can hear their screams in the background as he's reading these charges off. It's still not resonating in me what's going on. All I can do is look back over my shoulder like, that's all right, we all right. I was sentenced like on a Wednesday. That following Monday, they tapped my bunk, like, Curry, B&B. Like, B&B, like, what's going on? Like, I'm still trying to get in contact with my lawyer. I'm still trying to appeal my case. Like, nah, you going to prison this morning. And I had dreads all the way down my back then, so they take me, they finally get me out the pod, they get me up there to booking and whatnot. And I remember asking one of the COs that was there, was cool. She like, well, boy, they gonna cut them dreads off your head as soon as you get there. And I'm like, man, they're not cutting my hair. She said, listen, you are going, and if you don't cut it, you go into the hole. So I remember, asking her, like, well, is it all right if you would allow me to cut my dreads here? And she did. So I remember, shackled up here with my hands, and, I cut all my dreads off and I left them in property. And I remember being on the Department of Corrections bus on the way to the prison that morning, shackled down, shaking my head, and my dreads weren't moving. And it's like, yo, this is really happening. Sitting inside a prison cell was like, you're forced to deal with you. You're forced to, accept who you are and who you're not. I was still college boy, but I was college boy without dreads. I was still college boy, but now I'm waiting on the money order and I don't have my own access to money. I was still college boy, but I didn't have any females. Like, nobody was writing me or coming to visit me. Everything that I thought was cool to be able to come home and say that I did time is like, all right, but now you're doing time. One of the tattoos that I got when I was locked up was, everybody want to go to heaven, but nobody want to die. A lot of dudes want this rep or, want to be able to say that you this type of person, but it costs to do those things. And this wasn't a price that I wanted to pay. Again, it never really resonated in me that I was going to do all of this time. I think that was, kind of my defense mechanism, that, I never really truly accepted that this was real. Some would equate being in prison to being buried alive. I've never hurt so much in forcing myself to accept who I was and who I wasn't. You're not this tough guy. You do hurt. You do cry. You're Antoine. You know, and there's nothing wrong with being Antoine. I had to redefine who I was so that I could attract those things that I wanted out of life. But I know that this wasn't it. I went to the law library regularly. I read up about not only the elements that needed to be present, I was able to study the sentences that was in correlation with those elements and those specific crimes. I didn't necessarily meet all of those requirements to be convicted of said crimes, and I was able to forward this information along to my attorney, Michael Moorchower, at the time. Also, I was able to understand and come to the realization that a lot of crimes wasn't so black and white. There was a lot of gray areas. There was a lot of guys that fell victim to circumstances that, you know, qualified them for particular crimes. Which is a 400% increase from 40 years ago. I figured that this was due to, you know, there's more violent criminals or more crimes being committed now. The reality is that it's due to change in law and policy. So you had individuals that were sentenced to lengthy sentences, but they went up for parole every so often and, you know, be a piece of good behavior and they was released. Well, in 95, parole was abolished. Therefore, when I come along, now I receive a sentence and you're expected to do 85% of that sentence before you're even eligible for any type of release. I feel like now the laws and policy have changed again because so many of my generation have been released and reconvicted, and therefore now they have mandatory minimum sentencing, in which case, regardless of any circumstances of your crime or conviction, for these charges will have a mandatory sentence. You know, there's no longer any consideration given to the individual so much as more is placed on the actual crime itself. I was originally charged with attempt second-degree murder, which was amended down to attempted unlawful wounding. I was also convicted of malicious shooting within an occupied dwelling, which in essence is a conflict of charges. Therefore, by way of habeas corpus, I was able to give back 8 years of the sentence, which I was sentenced to 10 years with 2 suspended for the malicious shooting within a building. They suspended or dismissed the malicious shooting within an occupied dwelling. My original sentence was 13 years, 8 of which was for the conviction of malicious shooting inside an occupied dwelling. Once that charge was dismissed, I was released 8 years earlier.
Let me be your motivation. I don't ask for much. 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 I just wanna see the light. Made it from the bottom just to make it to the bottom. Tell my homies wanna see them that I got 'em. I don't ask for much. Made it from the bottom just to make it to the bottom. Tell my homies wanna see them that I got 'em. I don't ask for much. Let me be your motivation. Let me be your motivation.
So Faded and Company came to me as I was sitting in the first barbershop that I worked at upon coming home, and that was Kingdom Cuts Barbershop, which is downtown Fredericksburg. I was hired on as a licensed barber, in which case a licensed barber is not an employee as much as it is an independent contractor. So upon being given this job, this opportunity, I was given a key to the shop. So sitting there one day is like, you know what, I'm building a little bit of clientele now. It's like, I want to be able to have something like this of my own. The name Faded is more of an urban term. Urban guys, you know, we get a fade. So, you know, faded, pun intended. The A & Company is I wanted to also have a distinguished look on paper, and that's where the A & Company came in at. Fading & Company for me, or the barbershop rather, for me has always been a focal point of the community. I like to think that when I drape a client up, I have you for at least 45 minutes. So it gave me an opportunity to share my story, and not just to take hair off your head, but also to pour something into you while I have you here with me. I met Mrs. Juanita at a Department of Corrections Reentry Summit that I was asked to speak at alongside Harold Clark, which is the director of the Department of Corrections.
When I heard him speak, I saw that he had potential to make a difference in others' lives. My name is Juanita Shanks, and I am the president and CEO of Failsafe Era. Failsafe Era is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that works with individuals affected by incarceration. That means the inmates, the returning citizen, and the family members. So I just wanted to work with him and just kind of help him move in the direction that he wanted to go in, to help him get to his destiny. And as we walk through this process, actually with my son, is when I really recognized the importance of helping to remove those barriers for individuals who have been affected by incarceration. So for us, it's important for us to change the lives of individuals that have been affected by incarceration, to help rebuild our communities that have been affected by incarceration, and then to help those family members to understand that life's not over, that there's still hope for their future.
I felt it was an honor that she would look at me in such a light that she was willing to invest into me. One of the greatest blessings that I feel Fading & Company has afforded Antoine, the man, is the ability to not only pour into young men here in the barbershop, but to have an invitation extended to me to appear at numerous high schools in the community. I was given the opportunity to speak to some students at Massaponax High School today, share a little bit of my story, in hopes that, some of the bad decisions I made will prevent them from making the same. I feel that it's of the utmost importance that we be proactive versus reactive in our endeavors of saving these young men's lives from not only incarceration, but consequences of bad decisions. I pray that I'm afforded more opportunities in order to reach out and impact more lives, not only here in the local community, but abroad. I feel that we have a social responsibility, especially within the community, to not only be in the community, but to be a part of the community, which gives us just an opportunity to build those relationships. We're able to meet other organizations that are invested into pouring back into the community. Each event that we've attended, we've met other people who have other organizations or councils that are already organizing other things that they've been invited us to. A lot of times they say like it takes a village. I think the more that we are seen, the more exposure we have, and therefore open up the door for this story to be told more often.
He's doing it out of his heart. He's doing it because he cares. It makes me feel good to know that someone that at one point took from our community and is now giving back, and giving back to the youth especially.
Given my story, given the facts that I am in fact guilty of those charges that I was charged and convicted and sentenced for, given the many men that I've came across while fighting for my freedom that are yet to obtain theirs, with even more valid reasons for them to be home. Given the platform that I've been afforded to be put in front of people's kids, some of their most prized possessions, and to speak to one barber in particular that has a life sentence that so happened to be one of my barber aides while I went through the class. And for him to share with me how he lives through me, because he may never get this chance.
The things that I have seen Antoine do, the way and how he relates to other youth, and how he is being such an example and role model for his son and his daughter. He is making such an impact in our communities. I'm proud. He makes me very, very proud of him.
Yeah, I talked to a teacher of yours once, and she always told me, don't never forget Antoine is talented. And I told her that the other day, you know. I said, I'm doing a good job, you know.
Some of us just slow learners. Take a little while longer for some of us.
Yeah, just continue to do good, you know. And Antoine put me through so much you just don't know. Money spent and everything, but he changed. You know, and you're doing good, so continue.
I've seen young men that enter prison at an age that they was never able to be a man. And I see so many that are headed in that direction. I almost feels like this is kind of my purpose, in hopes that if there's only one that I can reach that will allow them to avoid some of the pitfalls that I fell into, that is worth it.
I used to be a used to. I used to be a used to. I used to grind in the dirt. I used to cry till it hurt. I will look up to the heavens when it's my time gonna come. I used to be a used to, but I never got used to being what I used to.